Start करते हैं. Okay, today I will talk about. Okay, today I will talk about an introduction to active galactic nuclei, that is also known as AGN and quasars. So basically, I will talk about what is an AGN and quasar, what kind of AGNs and quasars are out there, and unified theory for AGN and quasars. So basically, before we go to AGN, first we should understand what is astronomy. So astronomy basically can be divided into two parts. First is called galactic astronomy. So galactic astronomy is basically study of objects in our galaxy, that is Milky Way, which is a tiny part of universe. And extragalactic astronomy to study object outside Milky Way. So if we just remove Milky Way and rest of the universe, almost complete universe, so which is full of various classes of fascinating objects. Those are normal galaxies, active galaxies, and several exotic objects like gamma ray bursts, supernova, etc. So today my talk will be based on active galactic nuclei. So active galactic nuclei emit radiation in the complete electromagnetic spectrum. So which type of emission mechanism are responsible for emission in different EM bands, and a tiny subset of special class of extragalactic objects emit radiation in the complete EM spectrum. All the objects does not emit radiation, do not emit radiation in the complete EM spectrum, but only a tiny subset of objects. So these objects are basically prime targets for multi-wavelength astronomy, which can be done simultaneously and or non-simultaneously. So now I will just come on the classification of galaxies. So galaxies basically are two classes, that is normal galaxies. So more or less non-variable luminosity. So galaxy is basically made of stars plus interstellar matter. So if we take the flux of combined flux of star and interstellar matter, so that is the flux of normal galaxy, which will be non-variable. Almost 98% galaxies are normal galaxies. And there are another 2% galaxies are called active galaxies, which show unusually high and varying luminosity that appears to be non-stellar origin. So basically the origin of AGN luminosity is different than the origin of star. So what are AGN? So AGN are the nucleus of galaxies which show energetic phenomena that cannot clearly and directly be attributed to stars. So what does it mean? Basically, how you differentiate this? If we take the spectra of a star and the spectra of an AGN, so we will find the spectra looks very different for AGN if we compare with the normal stars. So what is an AGN? AGN is a nucleus of a galaxy that has a higher luminosity than the rest of the galaxy. So most of the luminosity is concentrated at its nucleus. So it is center of each galaxy is a region of densely packed matter, which is called nucleus. In AGN or active galaxies, these nuclei are actually more luminous than all other objects within the galaxy throughout all, or at least most of the spectrum from radio to gamma ray. So it means we are covering complete EM spectrum. That is, AGNs are among the most luminous object in the universe. So this is a picture of an optical image of a typical AGN. You can see the nucleus central region is very bright, and outside you can see a lot of stars and interstellar matter. What are quasars? So quasars are first seen as strong radio sources that look like stars. So earlier it was known as quasi-stellar radio sources, but later it was found that most of the quasars do not emit in the radio band. So they show strong emission lines those are broad, and at odd wavelengths. So at odd wavelengths, from here the concept of redshift came. They emit radiation in optical, UV, infrared and X-rays, and sometimes radio waves and gamma rays. Gamma ray emission is very hard to detect. So even if they emit, it is not possible to get the gamma ray emission from each source. And basically the radiation is non-thermal. They show flux variability on time scale or diverse time scales ranging from few tens of minutes to years at all wavelengths. So the sources show all uh, time scale variability on all time scale, and they are often associated with the relativistic charge particle jets. So here I have shown just two images. One is optical image and another is the radio image of quasars. So in the left image, you can see there is a box, and that box is zoomed. So this is basically an optical image, and box is a jet from an optical jet from a quasar. And the right side is the radio image of an AGN, where you can see the nucleus looks very bright, and then there is a jet, and two sides there are lobes. So typical quasar appearance. Here I have taken a optical image, and by arrow you can see there is very faint object is marked, and it is a quasar. So most are actually very faint, but their huge redshift implies they are billions of light years away and intrinsically powerful. So these sources are very far, so they look very faint, but intrinsically they are very bright. So how do we know if this source is a quasar? So basically, if we take the spectra of other objects in the field, and this quasar, so spectra will look very different than the quasar. So this will classify if this object is a quasar or an alien. So what are the radiation mechanism? Radiation mechanism are basically, we can divide into two classes: thermal radiation and non-thermal radiation. So thermal radiation mechanism is Wien's law, Rayleigh-Jeans law, Planck's radiation law, first law of thermodynamics, second law of thermodynamics, and so on. And non-thermal radiation, synchrotron radiation, inverse Compton radiation, synchrotron self-Compton, cyclotron, Bremester-Long, Cherenkov radiation, etc. So these are the basic things which every student study in their radiative processes courses, and these radiation mechanisms are responsible in different phase of flux of an AGN. So one can explain in which phase of AGN flux which emission mechanism is responsible. AGN are basically multi-wavelength. As I said, it emits radiation from radio to gamma ray bands. So these are multi-wavelength and multi-time scale, because it shows variation on time scale of few tens of minutes to years. So this is multi-wavelength as well as multi-time scale phenomena. So AGN one can understand with this cartoon. It has this, you can see this cartoon where a supermassive black hole at center, which is surrounded by an accretion disk. You can see there is a black color black hole, and then there is a pink color accretion disk is shown, and there is a obscuring torus of gas and dust. You can see a donut here, which a cross section of donut is removed, so you can see what is actually happening in the center of the source. If you don't remove this cross section, then we cannot see the center. And cloud of line emitting gases, there are a lot of black dot and gray spots very close to black hole and away from black hole. So the black dot and gray spots which are very close to the black hole, they are basically responsible for broad line emission, and the black dot and gray spots which are away from the black hole, they are basically responsible for narrow line region in the spectra. And there is a bipolar jet of relativistic charge particle. So now we can classify AGN into different classes. So several classes of AGNs are strong radio emitters. So those are called radio loud. Others are not. So radio quiet. So it serves as a good way to break the classes into two groups. So basically this classification is based on the radio emission. So this classification is basically, if we take the flux of any AGN at 5 gigahertz, that is radio band, divided by F, flux at B band is optical, which is 4400 angstrom. And if it is greater than equal to 10, then the AGN is called radio loud AGN. Only about 10 to 15% AGN are radio loud, and AGN can be divided into two classes. First one is radio quiet and second one is the radio loud. Radio loud AGN, radio quiet AGN are further classified as Seyfert galaxies, which are type 1 and type 2, and quasars, that is radio quiet quasar. If we go on radio loud class, so quasars are there, radio loud quasar. Another subclass is blazars, which is basically which is combined name of BL-like objects, high polarization quasars, and optically violent variable objects, quasars, and radio galaxies. Radio galaxies are further classified into two classes: narrow line radio galaxy and broad line radio galaxy. If you look on the AGN unification, so this is the same picture, but it is divided into two parts. So upper part is the radio loud and lower part is the radio quiet. So what is basic difference? Upper part we can see there is a Z, but in the lower part there is no Z. Otherwise the picture looks identical in the above radio loud or radio quiet. So if he looks towards the Z direction, then it is called blazars. If we look with slightly moderate angle, then upper part it is a radio loud quasars, and then with a larger angle broad line radio galaxies, and if you look in the accretion disk plane, then it is a narrow line radio galaxies. If you go to the radio quiet side, so perpendicular to the disk objects are called radio quiet quasars. With moderate angle it is Seyfert 1 galaxy, and if you look in the disk plane, then it is a Seyfert 2. So basically Seyfert 2 and narrow line radio galaxies have similar orientation. Broad line radio galaxies and Seyfert 1 galaxies have similar orientation, and radio quiet objects, QSOs and blazars have the similar orientation. What kinds of AGNs are out there? So there are several further sub classification, and few of them are listed here, like FR1, Fraunhofer, Rayleigh class 1, Seyfert 1.8, narrow line X-ray galaxies, compact steep spectrum sources, broadline radio galaxies, etc. et al. So this is an AGN view. Here I have shown a spectra, optical spectra of few subclasses of AGN. So if you see in the left panel from top one is the BL-like object, where you can see there is, looks like continuum, there is no prominent emission or absorption line. Second panel is a typical quasar spectrum, where you can see a lot of strong emission lines. Third panel is where you can see emission line as well as absorption line, and bottom panel is where you can see lot of prominent absorption line. If you go in the right hand side, so top panel is Seyfert 1 galaxy, and which has broad as well as narrow emission line. Second panel is Seyfert 2 galaxy, which has only narrow emission line, and third panel is broad line radio galaxy, which has broad as well as narrow emission line. So broad line radio galaxies and Seyfert 1 have similar type of spectra, but the difference is that broad line radio galaxies are radio loud and Seyfert 1 is radio quiet. And bottom panel is only narrow emission line, which has looks like similar to the spectra of Seyfert 2 galaxies, where only narrow emission lines are there. But the difference is Seyfert 2 galaxies are radio quiet and narrow line radio galaxies are radio loud. So initially two main classes of AGN hosts: Seyfert galaxies, which were often hosted by spiral galaxies. They are closer and fainter, intrinsically fainter, and quasars, which are hosted by elliptical galaxies, which has typical luminosity of approximately 100 times of luminosity of our galaxies, which are distant and brighter, intrinsically brighter. So Seyfert galaxies, characteristic of type 1 and type 2 Seyfert galaxies. Seyferts are strong sources of low energy gamma rays with luminosity peaking around 100 kilo electron volt, then dropping off for higher energy photons. Their host galaxies are often spiral or irregular shaped galaxies. Seyferts are actually fairly common. There are they are there are is thought to be a Seyfert AGN at the center of about 1% of spiral galaxies. If we take a sample of spiral galaxies, so about 1% spiral galaxies are Seyfert galaxies. And Seyfert galaxies are broken into two subclasses, type 1 and type 2, on the basis of emission lines appearing in their spectra. So here I have shown the picture of type 1 Seyfert type 1 Seyfert galaxies. These have both narrow and broad line which peaks in their spectra. So top panel you can see the complete spectra, and bottom panel is just a zoomed version of the spectra. Seyfert 2 galaxies, these have only narrow emission lines visible in their spectrum. You can see there are few spikes like features which are basically narrow emission lines. First detection of Seyfert galaxies, 1908, Fath and Slipher detected strong emission lines similar to planetary nebulae with a line width of several hundred kilometers per second in NGC 1068. NGC is a catalog called News General Catalog. So this is the picture of a spiral galaxy known as NGC 6 at 1068. So rediscovery of Seyfert galaxies, 1943, Carl Seyfert finds multiple galaxies similar to NGC 1068, and hence since then these are called by his name. 1955, detection of radio emission from NGC 1068 and NGC 1275. 1959, Voyager draws several important conclusions on Seyfert galaxies. Nuclei are unresolved, less than 100 parsec. Nuclear emission lasts for 10 to the power 80 years. So 1 by 100 spirals is a Seyfert, and the universe is 10 to the power 10 years old. So this is the main conclusion came by Voyager et al. Quasars. So radio quiet quasars, they show a strong emission line in both the optical and X-ray spectrum. Within the optical spectrum, both broad and narrow emission lines are present, similar to type 1 Seyfert galaxies. Host is usually an elliptical galaxy. Sorry, it should be a spiral galaxy, but less commonly it might be spiral. It is wrongly written. Elliptical should be spiral and spiral should be elliptical here. And radio loud quasars, all the same characteristic of radio quiet quasars with the addition of having a strong radio emission. So since these objects emit radiation in the complete EM spectrum, so we can generate their spectral energy distribution. So here there are two curves. One is continuous curve, which is for radio quiet objects, and dotted curve, which is for radio loud. So one can clearly see the radio quiet objects either don't emit any radiation in radio band, or if they emit, the emission is very weak. And infrared to optical band, the emission from optical radio quiet and radio loud object looks very similar, but when we go to the X-ray band, radio loud object looks more bright in X-ray compared to the radio quiet objects. So now I will come on the discovery of quasar. This is the first quasar which was discovered, known as 3C273. This is the here 3C means this is the third Cambridge catalog, and source number object number 273. It is a compact radio source, looks like a star except for the wisp of light. This is the in the picture, the object which is seen at the center of the picture is 3C273, where you can see very nice optical jet So broad here, this is the spectrum which made the discovery of this object. So the top one is the spectrum of 3C273 and the bottom one is the basically the standard spectrum, where one can see the prominent emission lines which are marked in the upper spectrum are shifted with its rest wavelength. So that's why broad emission line at strange position. And this was a big discovery which was appeared in Time magazine in 1963 by Martin Schmidt. So this was the first quasar identified. 1964, Martin Schmidt studied sufficient quasar to find some of its properties. These objects looks like a star associated with radio sources. They show variable flux, large, they are very bright in UV band, and they show broad emission line, and they have very high redshift. Later in 1978, Martin Elvis et al. Found some more conclusion that not all quasars have these properties, although most are X-ray luminous. Here's some example of quasar. Here you can see there are some object. Top one is a galaxy, then bottom one is also a galaxy. There are basically 4 galaxies are marked, and right one a bright object where you can see a spider, that is a star, but the center there is a quasar. So quasar often outshine their host galaxy, which can be difficult to detect. So here quasar is so bright we cannot identify which type of its host galaxy is. Quasar composite optical and UV spectrum. Here this is the composite optical to UV band spectrum. We can see a lot of prominent emission line like H alpha, Lyman alpha, carbon 4, carbon 3, magnesium 2, oxygen 3. So this is actually when we observe a field of sky, there are plenty of objects, and it is extremely difficult to take the spectra of individual object and identify which one is AGN and which one is a normal star. So this is a technique called photometric technique, where one can plot color versus color diagram, U minus B versus B minus B. So on the top left corner there is a circle. So if the object show color in this circle range, then most likely they are not star, but they are either AGN or quasars, and the objects lie in this ellipse. These are basically stars. So once we find which objects are lying in the circular region, then we can take the spectra of individual objects to identify which one is the really an AGN. So quasar Seyfert often have usually blue color related to star, and which are bluer than most of A stars. Quasars have relatively flat spectrum from B to U band. Quasars show variability in every band. Here you can see variability and different band from top to bottom. And variable time scale can also from days to months and even years, and sometimes even very short. Hence size of emission region is light days to light months. Basically this emission is coupled with the emitting size region. So first detection of optical jets, there are some nice pictures here you can see. Object M87, which is very famous object, which is recently its center black hole is imaged, and in 1930 detection of optical jet in M87 by Curtis. So here there are 3 pictures, and the jet of this object in different band. The top panel is observed in Chandra X-ray band, bottom left one is the VLA radio band, and bottom right one is the HST optical band. So one can see nice jet in optical, radio and X-ray band from M87. Now I will come on the Blazar class. So Blazar is a subclass of radio loud AGN. Basically BL-like object plus optical violent variable plus high polarization quasars, which is now known as flat spectrum radio quasars. If we club together, then it is called blazars. Basically, this name is given by Spiegel in 1978. There was a conference on BL-like objects in Pittsburgh. So he named these objects as a blazar. Blazar display flux variability in complete EM spectrum. Blazars show variable polarization in radio to optical bands. Blazar radiation at all wavelengths is predominantly non-thermal. Blazar makes angle of less than 10 degree between the line of sight and the emitted jet from the source. And blazars can be further classified. That is called LBL or RBL. LBL means it is called low energy blazar or red blazar, and basically these are discovered in the radio surveys. Another class is HBL or XBL, which is basically blue blazar or high energy peak blazar, and these are basically discovered by X-ray surveys. So if we look on the optical spectrum, so BL-like objects does not show prominent emission or absorption line in their spectrum. So here you can see in the top panel, and the bottom panel is the quasar, where one can see prominent emission lines. So these two class of AGNs are clubbed together and known as blazars. So spectral energy distribution, blazar SEDs have two peaks. So spectral energy distribution, multi-wavelength, if we generate a spectral energy distribution, the first component peaks anywhere from infrared to optical band in low energy blazar or LBL blazars, and at UV X-ray in high energy peak blazars. And the second component extend up to gamma rays, peaking at GeV energies in the LBL objects and at TeV energy in HBLs. So the electromagnetic emission is dominated by synchrotron component at low energy. So the first component of SED is basically dominated by synchrotron radiation, and high energy is probably by inverse Compton radiation. So this is typically the SED of LBL and HBL look like this. So dotted SED is for HBLs and long dashed SED is for the LBL. Now another class of object is radio galaxies. So except for being highly luminous along the radio wavelength, radio galaxies do not have many common characteristics. Their properties may be different from object to object. However, they can be classified into two smaller subgroups, again based on width of their emission lines. So broad line radio galaxies, so BL, that is called BLRG. So emission line width similar to those of Seyfert 1. Seyfert type 1 means broad as well as narrow emission lines are present in the broad line radio galaxies, and narrow line radio galaxies NLRG, where emission line widths similar to those in the Schiffer type 2 galaxies. Classes of radio galaxies, and if we look on the radio luminosity, so radio galaxies can be classified into two different classes. Large radio galaxies with lobes can be divided into two types, that is called Faner-Hoff Rayleigh class, which was given this classification in 1974. So FR1 is weaker radio source that are bright in the center, means its region around the black hole is very bright, but the center towards the edge. So this is called limb darkened. And FR2, where the radio is structured with faint core, the central region is faint, but the bright endpoints, so limbs are brightened. So this is the picture where you can see the left one is the FR1 galaxies, radio galaxies, where central region is bright, but the lobe is not very bright. And right hand one is the FR2, where the center is not very bright. You can see at the center of the image there is a bright nucleus, and but lobe is very bright. So this classification is again based on the luminosity and absolute magnitude, and this greater radioluminosity need to make FR2 if the jet emerges from the more luminous host galaxies. So if you see this flux, radio flux, so the line divided, the upper portion is mostly FR2 galaxies and the lower portion is the basically FR1 galaxies. So there are two more FR1 and FR2 here you can see. Both are FR1. You can see center is bright, but the lobes are not very bright. Different properties of AGN and quasars. So now this flux and polarization variability is basically from radio to optical band, because there is no facility where one can measure polarization in high energy. Radio galaxies luminosity functions and quasars emit jet spectral lines in AGN and quasar, and one can estimate the black hole mass using various properties, and there are other properties. They show variability on diverse time scale. So this type variability is thermal emission from accretion disk. So basically it is applicable on the very short time scale as well as when the source is in the faint state. Change in jet orientation, jet flow, etc., and which is applicable on diverse time scale, from time scale of few tens of minutes to even months and years, and binary black hole model where long-term variability can be explained. So here are some picture for intraday and short-term variability. Extremely, this left panel you can see there is a light curve observed on different dates, and you can see nice variation. This upper light curve is the blazar flux variation, and bottom is the differential instrumental magnitude of two standard stars to show the variability seen in the blazar or AGN or quasar is genuine. And the right panel you can see nice short-term variability with time scale of few tens of days. Long-term radio monitoring, here one can see the top panel is the polarization angle, then percentage of polarization, and bottom one is the flux variation. And different color shows different band, like red one is 4.8 gigahertz, blue one is 8 gigahertz, and green one is 14.5 gigahertz. These observations were taken from University of Michigan Radio Astronomical Observatory. And it is a long-term long-term right curve, which is almost for 25 years, taken from 1975 to year 2000. This is a optical light curve. Bottom light curve, you can see it is the longest light curve available for any quasar, which is almost covering for more than 100 years for now. This almost covers 100 years, and this model, this light curve was very useful to predict a model, and the upper panel is based on the model which was given for the long-term variability based on the bottom panel, that is called binary black hole model. Basically this model was given in 1988, and it predicted that there should be two outbursts will be observed in 1994-95, and which was really observed. You can see flux enhancement, rapid flux enhancement at two times, on two occasions in the upper panel of the figure. So this is a picture of FR2 radio galaxies, and this is a jet emission from a famous quasar 3C2 or Discovery quasar. The top one is in the by Spitzer satellite in infrared band, and the bottom one is X-ray, and the middle one is basically optical Hubble telescope, and contour is plotted with the radio VLA telescope. Very long baseline array observation of another quasar of 3C279, where apparent superluminal motion with 3.5 c. C is the speed of light. So basically, these objects appears like they are moving with the much more velocity than the speed of with the speed of much more than the speed of light. But real speed, it cannot be more than the speed of light. So the really absolute speed is v is equal to 0.99 c at the viewing angle of 2 degree. So these are the three basic model. The first top right corner, this is called hot spot on or above accretion disk. So this here you can see there is a black hole at center, and jet is emitted from bipolar jet is emitted, and this accretion disk is rotating. So hot spot will appear and disappear on the accretion disk, and this will cause the change in flux on short time scale, because if we apply this model for long time scale, then black hole mass exceeds 10 to the power 10 solar mass, and in the when the source is very bright, then jet emission is so prominent, any emission from the accretion disk cannot be seen. So, and thus left hand uh, model is basically it is jet based model, and this model is given in 1978 by Martin Rees and Blandford, and which has several version of modification which is done by a group in Boston led by Alan Marshall. And this model is most acceptable model to explain the variability, flux variability on diverse time scale in different EM band. And this bottom right panel, this model just I showed the previous picture, where 100 years of light curve was there for OJ287, and based on that light curve, Silanappa et al. Predicted, did this some analysis and gave this model in 1988, and showed that this source shows a quasi-periodicity on the time scale of 12 years, and predicted that the outburst will be seen in 1994-95, which was really observed, which we can see from the top panel here. So these are the three basic AGN models. So now I will come on, I almost wind up. So why to do research on AGN? So you can see how the AGN field has evolved. Number of AGN and quasars were discovered. Mainly discovery was made after the Sloan Digital Sky Survey was released, and its third data series was released in 2003. Then number of AGN and quasars detected were approximately 46,000. After 2 years, DR5 was released, then this number from 46,000 to increase to 90,000. Out of 90,000, approximately 1,000 were blazars. And recently, SDSS data DR7 was released in 2008, where number of AGN and quasars detected were approximately 1 million. And current data release has about a billions of AGN and quasars. So this field is emerging very rapidly. And if we go to, even blazars are very rare, but why to study blazar? Blazar has large potential to do new science because they show rapid variation, and variation is very unpredictable. So like one source here I have just mentioned, blazar AO0235 plus 164, which was discovered in 1975, and till date it has more than 600 research papers, but still it has a lot of potential to publish more papers on it. So there are new challenges in unification. So we know this radio quiet objects are BL-like objects are radio loud objects, but do radio quiet BL-like objects exist? What percentage of Seyfert galaxies are radio loud? Nowadays, radio loud Seyfert galaxies are also discovered. There are people also talk about blazar and FR1 and FR2 unification, but it is still a challenging task. AGN absorption redshift, generally redshift is estimated with the emission redshift, because absorption line are estimated from the source, the material between source and observer. So in general, it is believed that absorption redshift either equal to emission redshift or less than emission redshift, but there are Some cases where absorption redshift is greater than emission redshift is detected. How to detect black hole mass and spin? These are the two fundamental parameters, and most of the AGN, these parameters are not yet detected very accurately. Can AGN also emit ultra high energy cosmic rays, means 10 to the power 19 electron volt? So there are evidences, there are very few evidences where ultra high energy cosmic rays are emitted, and there are some prediction if some objects may show ultra high energy cosmic ray emission from AGN, and so many things, so many other things one can do. So now I will just summarize. AGN show emission not easily attributed to star. AGN occurs both in spiral and elliptical or spiral Seyfert quasars. Distinguished mostly in the amongst the energy emitted. AGN emit energy comparable or larger than all the stars in the host galaxy over a wide range of frequencies, including X-rays to optical, and sometimes in radio and gamma rays too. AGN can show linear structure, jet, lobes, hotspots in the radio, and jets in optical and X-rays of the order of a few megaparsec. AGN show strong broad emission lines combined with the small emission region that indicates a high central concentration of mass. AGNs come in many shapes and forms with often an unclear connection to each other. So this is a challenge for unification. AGN are often highly variable, supporting the small region from which the emission emits. So I will just stop here. Thanks. कुछ question?
अच्छा रिप्लाई कहाँ से करें?
Indian cartoons. Here. Okay. Actually, it is not coming from the black hole. Sanjeev Devnath. So your question is in Asian cartoon, it is shown that jets are coming out from center of black hole. Is it possible? Actually, it is not coming from the black hole. There is an event horizon, and anything beyond event horizon is seen. So it is not, basically it is coming from the event horizon or beyond event horizon. Any other question? No. If someone missed today's live lecture, they can find it on Aries Facebook page and also on Aries YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. The link to these sites are available on Aries official website. You can also submit your questions later on and also provide your feedback by using the link available below the videos. Thanks.